So, here is something worth thinking about as you settle in tonight, in the quiet, in the dark, as the room grows still around you. Time only moves forward. You have always known this. It is the most obvious fact in the world, so obvious that we almost never stop to wonder at it. The past is behind you, settled and gone. The future is ahead, open and unknown. You remember yesterday, but not tomorrow. You grow older, never younger. A cup falls and shatters, but shattered cups never leap back together. Time flows, always, in one direction, like a river that never runs backward. And the strange, wonderful truth is that no one fully knows why. Tonight, we are going to sit gently with that mystery, one of the deepest there is, and see how far we can follow it. You do not need to stay awake for any of it. Let us begin with how strange this really is, because it is far stranger than it first appears. You might think that, of course, time moves forward, that it simply must, that this is just how reality is built. But here is the astonishing part, the thing that has puzzled the finest physicists for over a century. When you look at the actual laws of physics, the deep rules that govern how everything moves and interacts, almost none of them care about the direction of time at all. They work equally well forwards and backwards. If you filmed 2 billiard balls colliding and bouncing apart, and then played the film in reverse, the reversed film would look perfectly normal. The balls would still obey every law of physics exactly. Nothing in the fundamental rules would be violated. At the level of the basic laws, there is no difference between forward and backward. Time, to the laws, is a two-way street. And yet the world is not like that at all. Film a cup falling and shattering on the floor, and play it in reverse, and it looks absurd, impossible, laughable. Shards of ceramic leaping up off the floor, assembling themselves into a whole cup, which jumps back up onto the table. You have never seen this happen, and you never will. Film an egg breaking, or milk swirling into coffee, or smoke rising and spreading, and reverse it, and every one of them looks impossible, dreamlike, wrong. So here is the great mystery, laid out plainly. The basic laws of physics do not care which way time runs, but the world, made of those very same laws, clearly does. Where does the difference come from? Why does the world have a direction of time, when the laws underneath it do not? That question is one of the deepest in all of science, and the answer, when we find our way to it, is beautiful, and a little humbling, and touches the very beginning of the universe. This is a story about that arrow, the one-way flow of time, and the strange, quiet reason it points the way it does. Because here is the thing worth holding on to as you drift. The direction of time is not built into the deep laws of physics. It is not a fundamental rule, like the speed of light. It emerges, somehow, from something else, from a single deep fact about the way the universe began. Time flows forward not because the laws demand it, but because of a special condition set at the dawn of everything that has been unfolding ever since. And understanding that is one of the great quiet wonders of physics. You do not need to follow every step of it. You do not need to hold the names or the numbers or the ideas. If you drift off somewhere along the river, that is perfectly fine. Time will go on flowing forward whether or not you are listening, carrying you gently toward morning, as it has carried you through every night of your life, without ever once needing your attention. The point tonight is not to learn. The point is to rest, and to let your mind drift along the one-way river of time, and to feel, in a calm and unhurried way, the deep and quiet wonder of a universe that flows. Let us begin, then, with the idea that holds the key to the whole mystery. It is a word you have probably heard, and it sounds technical and cold, but it is really about something very simple and very familiar. It is about the difference between order and disorder, between tidy and messy, between things coming together and things falling apart. The word is entropy, and once you understand entropy, gently, in a homely, everyday way, the whole mystery of why time flows forward begins, quietly, to make sense. Entropy is, at its heart, a measure of disorder, of how mixed up and spread out and jumbled a thing is. A tidy room with everything in its place has low entropy. A messy room with things scattered everywhere has high entropy. A stack of cards in perfect order has low entropy. A shuffled deck has high entropy. An unbroken egg has low entropy. A scrambled one has high. Low entropy means ordered, structured, special. High entropy means disordered, jumbled, ordinary. That is really all it is. A way of measuring how orderly or disorderly something is. And the great law that governs it, one of the most important laws in all of physics, is beautifully simple to state. In any closed system, left to itself, entropy tends to increase. Disorder tends to grow. Things fall apart, spread out, mix together, and run down. This is called the second law of thermodynamics, and it may be the closest thing physics has to an ironclad universal rule about the direction of time. You know this law intimately, even if you have never heard its name, because you live inside it every moment of every day. A hot cup of coffee, left alone, always cools down to room temperature. It never spontaneously heats up. Why? Because the heat spreads out, disorders itself, mixes into the room. A drop of ink in a glass of water always spreads until the whole glass is evenly tinted. It never gathers itself back into a single drop. A tidy room, left alone, tends to become messy over time. It never tidies itself. Buildings crumble, iron rusts, mountains erode, living things age. Everything, everywhere, left to itself, tends toward disorder, toward mixing, toward spreading out and running down. That is the second law, quietly at work in every corner of your life. And here is the crucial thing, the thing that connects it to time itself. This tendency has a direction. It happens one way and not the other, and that direction is the direction we call forward in time. Think about it. All the things that only ever happen one way in time are examples of entropy increasing. Cups shatter. They do not unshatter. Eggs scramble. They do not unscramble. Coffee cools. It does not spontaneously heat. Ink spreads. It does not gather. Every single process that has a clear direction in time, that looks absurd when you run it backward, is a process in which disorder increases, in which entropy grows. And every process that looks fine either way, like two billiard balls bouncing, is one in which entropy stays roughly the same. So here is the first glimpse of the answer to our whole mystery. The direction of time, the difference between forward and backward, is the direction in which entropy increases. Forward in time is simply the direction in which things become more disordered. The arrow of time is the arrow of growing entropy. They are, in a deep sense, the same thing. But this only pushes the question one step deeper, and the deeper question is the truly beautiful one. Why does entropy always increase? Why does disorder always win? Why do things fall apart and never, on their own, come together? If the laws of physics work equally well both ways, why should there be any preferred direction at all? And here is where the answer becomes gentle and profound, and once you see it, almost obvious. Entropy increases not because of a force, not because of a law that pushes it, but simply because of probability, because of counting, because there are vastly, overwhelmingly more ways to be disordered than to be ordered. Let us make this real with a simple picture. Gently. Imagine a deck of cards, fresh from the box, in perfect order. All the suits together, all the numbers in sequence. That is one particular arrangement, one specific order, out of all the possible arrangements of the deck. Now shuffle it. What are the chances it comes back into perfect order? Almost none. Because there is only one perfectly ordered arrangement, but there are billions upon billions upon billions of shuffled, disordered ones. When you shuffle, you are far, far more likely to land on one of the countless messy arrangements than the single tidy one. The order is not forbidden. It is just staggeringly unlikely, because it is so rare among all the possibilities. Disorder wins not because anything pushes it, but simply because there is so much more of it to land on. Now apply that to everything. A tidy room is like the ordered deck, a very special, very particular arrangement of all the objects in it. A messy room is like a shuffled deck, one of the astronomically many jumbled arrangements. When things get bumped and moved and knocked about by the ordinary happenings of the world, they are overwhelmingly more likely to drift into one of the countless disordered arrangements than to stumble back into the rare, special, ordered one. It is not that order is forbidden. It is that order is rare and disorder is common, so overwhelmingly common that the drift toward it is, for all practical purposes, certain. Entropy increases because disorder is simply more probable than order, not by a little, but by an amount so vast it defies imagination. That is the whole secret of the second law. It is not a force. It is just counting. There are more ways to be messy than to be tidy, and so messy is where things go. This is worth pausing on, because it is one of the most beautiful ideas in all of science, and a soothing one to rest against. The relentless, universal tendency of the world to run down, to spread out, to fall into disorder, the tendency that gives time its very direction, is not driven by any force or purpose or law that pushes things one way. It is driven by nothing more than probability, by the simple fact that there are vastly more disordered states than ordered ones. Time flows forward because forward is the direction of the probable, the ordinary, the overwhelmingly likely. The arrow of time is, at bottom, an arrow of probability, pointing from the rare and special toward the common and ordinary, from order toward disorder, from the unlikely toward the likely. It is one of the deepest truths there is, and it rests on nothing more mysterious than the counting of possibilities. So we have our answer, or the beginning of it. Time flows forward because entropy increases, and entropy increases because disorder is overwhelmingly more probable than order. But now, we reach the deepest layer of the whole mystery, the part that is truly profound, and that no one fully understands even today. Because if disorder is so overwhelmingly probable, if things naturally tend toward the jumbled and the mixed up, then there is a strange question hiding underneath everything we have said. Why is there any order at all? Why is the universe not already, and always, completely disordered? Why was there ever a tidy room to become messy, an unbroken egg to scramble, a whole cup to shatter? Think about it carefully, because it is subtle and beautiful. The second law says entropy increases, but for entropy to increase, it has to start low. For a room to become messy, it first has to be tidy. For a cup to shatter, it first has to be whole. The whole march of time, the whole flow from order to disorder, only makes sense if things began in a state of order, of low entropy, to begin with. And here is the astonishing thing. They did. The universe did begin in a state of extraordinarily low entropy, of remarkable order, and it has been running down, increasing in entropy, ever since. The arrow of time points forward because the past, the deep past, the very beginning, was a state of exquisite, improbable order, and everything since has been the slow, grand unfolding of that order into disorder. That is the true origin of time's direction. Not a law, a beginning, a single, astonishing fact about how the universe started. Let that settle for a moment, because it turns the whole mystery inside out. We started by asking why disorder increases toward the future. But the real puzzle, the deep one, is the reverse. Why was there so much order in the past? Why did the universe begin in such a special, such an unlikely, such a beautifully ordered state? Because that is the strange thing that needs explaining. Disorder in the future is easy to understand. It is just probability, just the drift toward the likely. But order in the past is the genuine mystery. The universe began in one of the rarest, most special, least probable states imaginable, a state of astonishingly low entropy. And the entire flow of time, the entire arrow, everything we call the past and the future, is nothing more than the universe slowly, grandly relaxing away from that special beginning toward the ordinary disorder that was always overwhelmingly more likely. Where did that low entropy beginning come from? What made the early universe so orderly? This is one of the great open questions in all of physics, and it is worth being honest, gently, that we do not fully know the answer. We can trace time's arrow back to the low entropy state of the early universe. But why the early universe had such low entropy in the first place, why it began in such a special and improbable state, remains genuinely mysterious, a puzzle at the very frontier of cosmology, still being worked on today. Some of the deepest thinkers in physics regard it as one of the most important unsolved questions there is. The direction of time, the flow of every moment of your life, rests upon a single unexplained fact, the strange orderliness of the beginning. And following the mystery all the way down leads you, in the end, to a place where human knowledge quietly runs out. And the honest answer is, we do not yet know. There is something rather beautiful in that, if you let yourself feel it as you drift. The most familiar thing in the world, the forward flow of time, the thing you experience every single moment, turns out to rest on one of the deepest and least understood facts about the entire cosmos. The reason you remember the past and not the future, the reason you grow older and not younger, the reason the cup shatters and never mends, all of it traces back, through the growth of entropy, to the mysterious low entropy beginning of the universe, nearly 14 billion years ago. Every ordinary moment of your life is quietly connected to the deepest cosmic origin. The arrow of time in your own small day is the same arrow that was set flying at the birth of everything. You are living inside the grand, slow unfolding of the universe's first, improbable order. Let us try to picture that beginning, gently, because it helps to make the abstract idea real. Nearly 14 billion years ago, the universe began, in the event we call the Big Bang. And in those first moments, the universe was in a very particular state. It was almost perfectly smooth, almost perfectly uniform, an even hot soup of matter and energy spread out with astonishing evenness in every direction. Now here is the subtle and crucial thing. For a universe with gravity, smoothness is not disorder. It is order. It is low entropy. This is a little counterintuitive, because in everyday life we think of things spread out evenly as disordered, and things clumped together as ordered. But gravity flips this around. Gravity pulls things together. So under gravity, the natural, high entropy, disordered state is clumpy, full of clusters and clumps and black holes, and the special, low-entropy ordered state is smooth and even. The early universe was smooth, and so, for a universe ruled by gravity, it was in a state of extraordinarily low entropy, extraordinary order. And ever since, gravity has been pulling that smooth matter together into stars and galaxies and clusters, increasing the entropy, unfolding the order, driving the arrow of time forward. So the arrow of time, in the end, was set flying by the smoothness of the newborn universe. Every clock that ticks, every process that runs one way, every memory that forms, every life that ages, all of it is powered, ultimately, by the slow gravitational clumping of matter that began smooth and has been gathering ever since. The forward flow of time is the universe relaxing away from its smooth, orderly, improbable beginning toward the clumpy, disordered, probable future. And your own experience of time, your own sense of past and future, is one tiny local expression of that vast cosmic process, the universe running down from the strange order with which it began. It is worth spending a quiet while on the person who first saw the deep meaning of entropy, because his story is a moving one and a gentle thing to rest against. His name was Ludwig Boltzmann, an Austrian physicist of the late 1800s, and he was the one who understood, more clearly than anyone before him, that entropy is really about counting, about probability, about the number of ways a thing can be arranged. Before Boltzmann, entropy was known as a useful quantity in the study of heat and engines, but no one truly understood what it was. Boltzmann saw it. He saw that entropy is a measure of how many different microscopic arrangements would look the same from the outside, that a high entropy state is one that can be arranged in countless ways, and a low entropy state is one that can be arranged in only a few. He turned entropy from a mysterious quantity into a matter of simple counting, and in doing so, he explained the second law, and with it, the arrow of time. His insight was so deep that the equation capturing it, relating entropy to the number of possible arrangements, is carved on his gravestone in Vienna to this day. It is one of the most important equations in all of physics, and it is beautifully simple, a bridge between the world we see and the countless invisible arrangements of atoms underneath. But Boltzmann's life was not an easy one. His ideas were fiercely resisted in his own time. Many physicists did not even believe in atoms yet, and Boltzmann's whole picture rested on atoms, on the idea that matter is made of countless tiny particles whose arrangements determine everything. He fought for his ideas against entrenched opponents for years, and the struggle wore on him. He suffered from deep depression, and in 1906, tragically, he took his own life, not long before the reality of atoms was finally, decisively confirmed. And his ideas triumphed completely. There is a quiet sadness in that, and also something worth honoring, a reminder to hold gently as you rest. Boltzmann died believing, perhaps, that he had failed, that his life's work might not be accepted. And yet he had seen further and more truly than almost anyone of his age. Today, his understanding of entropy is one of the foundations of all of physics. The arrow of time, the second law, the statistical nature of heat and disorder, all of it flows from what he saw. He gave us the deepest understanding we have of why time flows forward, and he did not live to see it embraced. There is a lesson in that about patience and about the value of seeing truly even when the world is not yet ready to agree, and it is a tender thing to carry into sleep, the image of a man who understood time itself, and was not thanked for it in his own life, but whose insight now lights the way for everyone who wonders, as you are wondering tonight, why time flows the way it does. Let us turn now to something more intimate, closer to home, which is your own experience of time, and in particular, the strange fact of memory. Because here is one of the most personal expressions of the arrow of time, one you live every moment. You remember the past. You do not remember the future. This seems so obvious that it hardly needs saying, but stop and wonder at it for a moment. Why should it be so? Why can you recall, in vivid detail, what happened yesterday or years ago, but have no memory whatsoever of tomorrow? If the laws of physics do not care about the direction of time, why does memory point so firmly in one direction, always toward the past, never toward the future? The answer, beautifully, is entropy again, the same deep principle, showing up now inside your own mind. A memory is a record, a trace left in your brain by something that happened. And forming a record, laying down a memory, is a physical process, and like all physical processes, it must obey the second law. To create a memory, to imprint a lasting trace of an event, requires increasing the entropy of the world, spreading out a little more disorder, in exactly the way that defines the forward direction of time. You can form records of the past because forming them increases entropy, which is what the future direction allows. You cannot form records of the future because that would require the reverse, a decrease in entropy, which the arrow of time forbids. Memory points toward the past because memory is a physical record, and records can only be made in the direction of increasing entropy, which is the direction we call forward. Your own remembering is a small, intimate expression of the second law of thermodynamics, running quietly inside your head. This is worth sitting with, because it means something rather profound about you, and it is a gentle thing to feel. Your sense of the passage of time, your feeling that the past is fixed and the future is open, your very ability to remember and to anticipate, all of it is rooted in entropy, in the same law that shatters cups and cools coffee and clumps galaxies. You are not separate from the arrow of time, observing it from outside. You are made of it. Your mind runs on it. The forward flow you feel so vividly is the same forward flow that governs the whole universe, expressing itself now in the formation of your memories, the aging of your body, the beating of your heart. You are a small, warm, local piece of the great arrow of time, a place where the universe's forward flow becomes a lived experience, a felt sense of moving from a remembered past into an unknown future. You do not merely watch time flow. You are time flowing in one small conscious corner of the cosmos. There is something remarkable about the arrow of time that we should pause on, because it deepens the wonder, and it is this. There is not just one arrow. There are several different ways in which time seems to have a direction, showing up in different corners of physics and experience. And the beautiful thing is that they all point the same way, all rooted, when you trace them down, in the same single source, the low-entropy beginning of the universe. Let us walk through a few of them, gently, because seeing how they line up is one of the quiet pleasures of this whole subject. There is the thermodynamic arrow, the one we have mostly been discussing, the direction in which entropy increases, in which heat spreads and disorder grows. This is the deepest and most fundamental one. There is the psychological arrow, the direction in which we remember the past and anticipate the future, which, as we have seen, is itself a consequence of the thermodynamic arrow, because memory is a record and records increase entropy. There is the causal arrow, the direction in which causes precede their effects. in which the past shapes the future and not the other way around. There is the radiative arrow, the fact that waves, like the ripples from a stone dropped in a pond, spread outward from their source into the future, and never converge inward from the future onto a source. And there is the cosmological arrow, the direction in which the universe expands, growing larger and more spread out as time goes on. 5 different arrows, 5 different ways time reveals a direction, in 5 different areas of physics. And the profound thing, the thing that ties the whole subject together, is that they all agree. They all point the same way. The direction in which entropy increases is the same direction in which we remember the past, the same direction in which causes precede effects, the same direction in which waves spread outward, the same direction in which the universe expands. If time is a river, all 5 arrows are pointing downstream, together, in perfect agreement. And physicists believe that this is not a coincidence, that all of these arrows are, in the end, the same arrow, all flowing from that single source, the strange, orderly, low-entropy beginning of the universe. One deep fact about the origin of everything gives rise to every direction of time we know, in physics and in experience alike. That is a beautiful unity, and a peaceful one to rest against, the sense that beneath all the different faces of time's flow, there is a single underlying reason, a single arrow, set flying at the dawn of the cosmos. Let us turn now to something that seems, at first, to defy the arrow of time, and yet, on closer look, depends on it utterly, which is life itself. Because you might wonder, if everything tends toward disorder, toward running down and spreading out, how does life exist at all? A living thing is a marvel of order, of structure, of exquisite organization. Your body is one of the most intricately ordered arrangements of matter in the known universe. How can such order arise and persist in a universe whose deepest law is the relentless increase of disorder? Does life not violate the second law, building order where the universe demands decay? It does not, and the way it does not is beautiful and worth understanding gently. Living things do build and maintain order within themselves, but they do so at a cost. To build the order of your body, to grow, to think, to move, to keep yourself organized against the pull of decay, you must take in energy from food, which ultimately traces back to the sun, and you must release waste heat, disordered energy, back into your surroundings. And the disorder you release into the world is always greater than the order you build within yourself. You are a little island of order, yes, but you create it by increasing the disorder of the universe around you, by more than you decrease it in yourself. Life does not defy the second law. Life rides it. Living things are exquisite machines for building local order while increasing the total disorder of the universe, for swimming upstream in one small place by pushing the river downstream even harder everywhere else. So life is not an exception to the arrow of time. It is one of its most beautiful expressions. You exist. You maintain your intricate order. You think these thoughts, precisely because the universe as a whole is running down, because there is a flow of energy from the ordered to the disordered that living things can tap into, riding it, using it, to hold themselves together for a while. The sun pours out ordered energy. Life captures a little of it to build itself, and releases disordered heat in return, and the total entropy of the universe rises all the while. You are a whirlpool in the great river of entropy, a place where the flow curls into a temporary, living order, held together by the very current that will, one day, carry it apart. And there is something both humbling and lovely in that, in knowing that your own life, your own order, your own consciousness is powered by the same forward flow of time that governs the shattering of cups and the fading of stars, that you are, quite literally, a creature made of and moved by the arrow of time. Sit with that for a moment. You are made of the flow, not fighting it, made of it. Every cell you have is a small, ordered thing. It holds its shape against the pull toward disorder. It spends energy to do it. It gives off heat, and that heat raises the disorder of everything around you. So you stay ordered, and the world grows a little more disordered because you do. That is the trade. That is the deal every living thing has struck. Order inside, paid for by disorder outside. You are doing it right now. You did it all day. You will do it all night, while you sleep. It never stops. It cannot stop, not while you live. And there is a strange comfort in that. You do not have to try. The flow does the work. You simply have to be, and the arrow carries you. Now let us follow the arrow all the way to its end. If time flows in one direction, because entropy is rising, and if entropy rises because the universe began in a state of remarkable order and has been spreading out ever since, then there is a question we cannot avoid. What happens when the spreading is finished? What happens when there is no more order left to spend? Think again about that cup of coffee cooling on the table. The heat flows from the hot coffee into the cool room, and the temperatures drift toward each other. And after a while, the coffee is exactly as warm as the air around it. And then something quiet and final happens. The flow stops. Not because anything is pushing back, but because there is nowhere left for the heat to go. Once the coffee and the room are the same temperature, there is no difference to drive a flow. The system has reached what we call equilibrium, and at equilibrium, nothing further happens on its own. The coffee will never spontaneously reheat. It will never spontaneously cool below the room. It will simply sit at the same temperature as everything around it forever. Now imagine that same idea, not for a cup of coffee, but for the entire universe. The stars are hot. Space is cold. That difference is the source of nearly everything interesting that happens. Heat flows from the hot stars out into the cold, dark, and along the way it lights up planets, warms oceans, feeds life, drives weather, powers every candle and campfire and living cell there has ever been. All of it, every flame and every heartbeat, is the universe cashing in the difference between hot stars and cold space. But the stars are not eternal. Each one is a finite store of fuel, burning down. And when a star has spent its fuel, it fades, it cools, it becomes a cinder. So follow the thread forward. Give it time. Give it an amount of time so vast that the entire history of the universe so far, all 13.8 billion years, is less than the first tick of the clock. The stars we see tonight will burn out. Our own sun, in about 5 billion years, will swell and shed its outer layers and settle into a slowly cooling ember called a white dwarf. Across the galaxy, the same story plays out, star by star. The bright, massive stars go first, in mere millions of years. The small, frugal red dwarfs last far longer, sipping their fuel for trillions of years. But even they, in the end, go dark. And once the last of the existing stars has died, new stars keep forming for a while from the leftover gas, until that gas, too, runs low. And then there's a last generation of stars, and a last star of all, And when it fades, the cosmos goes dark for good. No new suns, just cooling embers, scattered across an ever emptier black. This is the era the physicists sometimes call the long twilight. And it is very, very long. But even that is not the end of the running down. The dead stars, the white dwarfs and neutron stars and cold planets, still drift in the dark, still bound into galaxies, still circling the great black holes at the galaxies' hearts. And over unimaginable stretches of time, those orbits decay. The dead stars spiral inward, or are flung out into the emptiness between galaxies, one by one. The galaxies themselves come apart, and the great black holes, having swallowed what they can, are left alone in the dark. And here is the strangest part of all. Even the black holes do not last forever. A black hole seems like the most permanent thing imaginable, a place where gravity is so strong that nothing, not even light, can escape. And yet, because of a subtle effect first understood by the physicist Stephen Hawking, a black hole very, very slowly leaks. It glows, ever so faintly, at the edge, and in glowing it loses a tiny trickle of its mass. For a large black hole, this trickle is so slow as to be almost nothing, but given enough time, and we are speaking now of numbers so large they can barely be written down, even the largest black hole evaporates away, shrinking, glowing, and finally vanishing in a last faint flicker. And then, at last, there is nothing left to happen. No stars, no heat, no light, no structure. Just a thin, cold, ever-thinning fog of particles and radiation, drifting apart in the dark, all at very nearly the same temperature, spread as evenly and as smoothly as anything can be spread. The differences are gone. The hot and the cold have equalized. The order that the young universe was born with has all been spent. This is the state that physicists have long called the heat death of the universe, though there is no heat left to speak of. A better name might be the great sameness, the final equilibrium. The cup of coffee, at last, exactly as warm as the room. And now think about what that means for the arrow of time. If time points forward because entropy is rising, then in a universe where entropy has stopped rising, where it has reached its maximum and can climb no higher, the arrow has nothing left to point with. There are no more flows, no more processes, no more changes to distinguish a before from an after. A film of the great sameness, run forward, looks exactly like the same film run backward because nothing is happening in either direction. The particles drift, and drift, and drift. And there is no way from inside such a universe to say which way is later. The arrow of time, in the end, does not break. It does not reverse. It simply fades, gently, as the last differences even out, until there is no longer any difference between the future and the past. There is something almost unbearably quiet about that picture. And yet it should not frighten us, and it should not keep us awake. Because that ending, if it comes, lies at a distance so far beyond imagining that it makes no claim at all on tonight. The number of years is so large that our entire cosmic history so far, from the first instant to this one, rounds to zero against it. We live, all of us, every star we have ever seen, in the tiniest bright sliver at the very beginning of time, when the universe is young and full of order. And the arrow is strong, and there is still an almost infinite supply of difference to spend. The long twilight is not our worry. It is not even our great-great-grandchildren's worry. Time's a number with no name. It is simply the far shore of the river we are only just now setting out upon, and knowing where the river ends does not spoil the journey. If anything, it makes this bright morning of the cosmos feel more precious, not less. We are here in the age of stars. That is a rare and fleeting thing to be. The universe will not always have suns in it. It has them now. And we are here, awake, under them, for a little while. Let us come back now from the far shore, back across all those unnameable years, back to the small and human question that started all of this. Why does time feel the way it feels? Why does the past feel fixed and the future feel open? Why can we remember yesterday and not tomorrow? Why does it seem so deeply and so obviously that we are moving always from what has been toward what has not yet come to be? We have been circling the answer, and now we can say it plainly. Every one of those feelings, every one of those certainties that sit so close to the center of what it is to be a living, thinking creature, comes from the same single fact. The universe is running down, entropy is rising, and you and I, and everything that thinks or moves or lives, are riding that one long slope, from order toward disorder, from the low entropy dawn toward the great sameness at the end. Consider memory, one more time, because it is the strangest of all. You remember the past. You do not remember the future. This feels so natural that it is almost hard to notice it as a fact that needs explaining. But the laws of physics, remember, do not care about the direction of time. So why should memory? The answer is that a memory is a record, and a record is a kind of order. To remember something is to have a trace of it stored in the arrangement of the matter in your brain, a pattern laid down, a little island of order that reflects the way the world was. And laying down that trace, forming that memory, is a process that increases the entropy of the universe overall. Your brain spends energy, gives off heat, raises the disorder of the world around it, in order to hold a small ordered pattern inside. Memories point backward, toward the past, for exactly the same reason that broken cups do not reassemble and cooling coffee does not reheat. They point backward because the low entropy state, the state that all these processes lead away from, lies in the past. We remember the direction the order came from. We cannot remember the direction it is going, because that direction has not happened yet, and there is nothing there to leave a trace. And this is why the past feels fixed, and the future feels open. The past has already left its records. It is written in the ash and the scars and the memories and the light already emitted, in a billion crossing traces that all agree. That is what it means for the past to be settled. It is not that the past is more real than the future. It is that the past has left evidence, and the future has not yet. The future feels open because it has not yet laid down its records. Because the countless ways the disorder could increase from here have not yet been narrowed to the one way it actually will. We stand always at the growing edge of the record, at the place where the open future is being written into the fixed past, one moment at a time. And that edge, that moving line between what is settled and what is still possible, that is the now. That is the present. That is where we live. Even aging, in the end, is the arrow made flesh. A living body is a fortress of order, holding itself together against the pull toward disorder, repairing, rebuilding, resisting. But it is a losing fight, fought against a current that never tires. Slowly, the errors accumulate. The repairs fall a little behind the damage. The order, so beautifully maintained for so long, begins gently to fray. And this too is the second law, playing out in cells and tissues, in the graying of hair and the slowing of steps. We age in the direction of increasing entropy, because there is no other direction to age in. To be alive is to be a temporary eddy in the great downstream flow, and to grow old is simply to feel that flow, at last, beginning to win. None of this needs to be sad. It can be, if we hold it a certain way, but it can also be something else, because the same arrow that ages us is the arrow that let us be born at all, that let the stars form, and the planets cool, and the long chain of life assemble itself. We are children of the flow. We could not exist in a universe at equilibrium, a universe of the great sameness, where nothing happens and nothing changes, and there is no arrow at all. It is precisely because the universe is running down, precisely because there is a slope to stand on and a current to ride, that there can be such things as growth, and memory, and stories, and love, and the slow unfolding of a life from a beginning toward an end. A world without the arrow of time would be a world without any of that. It would be perfectly balanced, perfectly still, and perfectly empty of everyone. So the very thing that carries us toward our ending is the thing that gave us a beginning, and a middle, and every moment in between. That is not a cruelty. That is the bargain that makes existence possible at all, and there is a strange comfort in seeing it whole, in understanding that the forward flow of your own small life is the same flow that moves the galaxies, that you are not fighting the universe when you grow and change and age, but keeping perfect time with it. Think of what that means. You are not out of step with the universe. You are in step with it. Perfectly. The same flow that ages a star ages you. The same flow that cools a cup cools a life. There is no separate clock for you. There is only the one great clock, and you keep its time. Every breath you take is a tick of it. Every heartbeat. Every thought. You are not watching the river from the bank. You are in the water. You always have been, and so has everything you have ever loved. We are all moving downstream together at exactly the same speed, which is the speed of time itself. There is a kind of company in that. No one is left behind. No one races ahead. We go together, all of us, forward, into the same unknown. There is a deeper question hiding underneath all of this, and if you have been listening closely, you may have already felt it stirring. We have said that time points forward because entropy is rising, and we have said that entropy is rising because the universe began in a state of extraordinarily low entropy, a state of remarkable order, and has been climbing away from it ever since. But that only pushes the mystery back one step. Why did the universe begin in such an ordered state in the first place? Of all the ways a universe could have started, why did ours start with its entropy so very, very low? Because if it had not, there would be no arrow at all. This is one of the great open questions in all of physics, and I want to be honest with you that no one has fully answered it. But we can at least look at how strange it is, and that strangeness is worth sitting with tonight. Here is the part that trips almost everyone up at first. When you picture the very early universe, the moments after the Big Bang, you probably picture something chaotic, a hot, dense, roiling fireball, matter and energy packed together and churning, and chaos sounds like high entropy, like disorder. So how can we say the universe began in a state of order? The answer is one of the most beautiful and counterintuitive ideas in the whole subject, and it turns on a single word we have not yet added to the story. Gravity. Forget gravity for a moment, and think of a gas in a box, the way we did much earlier. For a gas with no gravity, the highest entropy state, the most disordered and most likely state, is the one where the gas is spread out perfectly evenly, filling the box smoothly, And the low-entropy state, the special and unlikely one, is the one where the gas is bunched up in a corner. For ordinary gas, smooth is disordered, and clumped is ordered. That is the intuition we built. But bring gravity back, and everything turns over. Because gravity pulls things together, and when a substance is under the influence of its own gravity, a smooth, even spread is no longer the natural resting state. It is a state poised on a knife edge, wanting to collapse. Let it go, and gravity will pull the smooth gas into clumps, and the clumps into denser clumps, and those into stars and planets and galaxies, and, given enough matter in one place, into black holes. For a universe ruled by gravity, the smooth state is the special one, the low-entropy one, and the clumpy state, full of stars and black holes, is the high-entropy one. It is exactly backward from the gas in the box. Now look again at the early universe with that in mind. That hot, dense fireball was, it turns out, astonishingly smooth. We can still see the evidence tonight, in the faint afterglow of the Big Bang that fills the whole sky, the light we call the cosmic microwave background. When we measure it, we find it is almost perfectly even in every direction, smooth to a few parts in 100,000. The early universe was one of the most uniform, most featureless, most smoothly spread things we have ever measured. And for a universe governed by gravity, that smoothness is not chaos at all. It is order. It is the low-entropy corner. It is the special starting condition, the tightly wound spring from which the whole long unwinding of cosmic history has followed. Everything since has been the smooth becoming clumpy, gravity gathering the even gas into the first stars, stars gathering into galaxies, galaxies into clusters, matter falling together, heating up, lighting up, and eventually falling all the way into black holes, which are, in the language of entropy, the most disordered objects there are, the very bottom of the gravitational slope. The whole magnificent story of cosmic structure, every galaxy and every star and every world, is the universe running down from that smooth, ordered beginning toward a clumpy, disordered end. The arrow of time, written across the sky. But why was the beginning so smooth? Why did the universe start wound so tight? We do not know for certain, and I will not pretend otherwise. Some physicists suspect the answer lies in the earliest instant of all, in a burst of rapid expansion that may have stretched the infant cosmos smooth, the way pulling on a wrinkled sheet flattens it. Others suspect the answer lies deeper still, in physics we do not yet have. In some reason, the universe simply had to begin in that special state. Some wonder whether our universe is one of many, and we find ourselves in a low-entropy one because only a low-entropy one could grow the structure and the chemistry and the life needed for anyone to be here wondering about it at all. These are open questions, live and unsettled, at the very frontier of what we understand. And it is a mark of an honest story to leave them open rather than to tie them off with a bow. But here is what we can say for certain, and it is enough to hold on to as you drift. The direction of time that you feel right now, this very moment, the sense that you are moving from a fixed past into an open future, traces back through an unbroken chain all the way to the smoothness of the newborn universe. Your sense of now is rooted in the beginning of everything. The reason you remember yesterday and not tomorrow is written into the state the cosmos was born in nearly 14 billion years ago. There is a thread that runs from that first smooth light, straight through every star and every age, straight into the quiet of your own mind tonight. You are the far end of the oldest story there is, and the story is still, gently, unwinding, and you are here for a small, bright part of it. Think about where you sit in the tail. The universe is young. The stars are still burning. The night sky is still full. That will not always be true. But it is true now. It is true tonight. You were born in the age of stars. Of all the times there could have been, you got this one. The one with suns in it. The one with light. That is not nothing. That is almost everything. So there is no need to mourn the far ending. It is not here. It is unthinkably far away. What is here is the warmth and the light and this quiet moment, and you, awake inside it. Rest in that. You are early. You are here at the good part. Now, a fair-minded person, lying here in the dark and turning all this over, might raise an objection. And it is such a good objection that it troubled the greatest physicists of the 19th century, and it is worth meeting head-on, gently, before we go on. The objection is this. We have said that the laws of physics do not distinguish forward from backward, that they run the same in both directions. And we have said that entropy always rises, that disorder always increases, that the arrow always points one way. But how can both of those be true at once? If the underlying laws have no preferred direction, how can the behavior built out of those laws have such a strong one? Where does the one-wayness come from, if not from the laws? It feels almost like a contradiction. You cannot, it seems, build a one-way street out of two-way bricks. A physicist named Joseph Loschmidt raised exactly this objection to Boltzmann long ago, and it has never quite lost its bite. And the resolution, when you finally see it, is one of the loveliest ideas in the whole story, because it does not come from the laws at all. It comes from counting. Return one last time to the shuffled deck, or the shattered cup, or the gas spreading through the room. When the gas spreads out and fills the room evenly, no law is being obeyed that forbids it from gathering back into the corner. In principle, it could. If every molecule happened, by pure chance, to be moving in just the right direction at just the right moment, they would all rush back to the corner, and the gas would unspread, and entropy would fall, and for that instant, time's arrow would seem to point the other way. The laws permit it. Nothing forbids it. It is not impossible. It is only staggeringly, overwhelmingly, unimaginably unlikely. There are so many more ways for the gas to be spread out than gathered in the corner. So many more arrangements that look disordered than look ordered, that the ordered outcome, while allowed, essentially never happens. Not never in principle, never in practice, never in the age of the universe, never in a trillion ages of the universe. The arrow of time is not a law, it is a probability, but a probability so lopsided, so utterly one-sided, that it acts with all the force of a law. The reason you have never seen a shattered cup leap back together is not that the laws forbid it. It is that the number of ways for the pieces to lie scattered is so vastly, cosmically larger than the number of ways for them to form a cup, that the odds against reassembly are beyond anything the human mind can hold. So the one-wayness does not live in the bricks. It lives in the counting. It lives in the fact that disorder can be arranged in so many more ways than order. And so, moment by moment, the world drifts toward the more numerous kind of arrangement, simply because there is so much more of it to drift into. The arrow of time is a statistical thing, an arrow made of sheer, overwhelming numbers. And that is why it can be built from laws that themselves have no arrow at all. And this leads to a strange and wonderful thought, one to hold loosely as sleep comes near. In a small enough system, watched closely enough, the arrow of time can flicker. A few particles jostling in a tiny box will, now and then, by chance, arrange themselves a little more neatly than before. And for a heartbeat, entropy in that little box will dip, and time's arrow there will waver. Physicists have actually measured such fleeting reversals in tiny systems over tiny intervals. The arrow is only firm, only unbreakable when the numbers are large. For a cup, for a candle, for a living body, for a star, the numbers are so enormous that the arrow never wavers even once. But it is humbling to know that the great one-way flow of time, the most certain feature of our whole existence, is at bottom not an iron law, but a landslide of probability, holding its direction only because the grains of sand are beyond counting. There is one more version of the objection worth touching, because thoughtful people always arrive at it. If disorder is simply more likely than order, then why was there ever any order to begin with? Why did we not start in the most likely state, the disordered one, and simply stay there? And the answer, of course, is the one we have already found. We did not start there. The universe was born in that rare, smooth, ordered state, wound tight for reasons we are still chasing. And everything since has been the slow, statistical, overwhelmingly probable slide away from it. The arrow points forward, not because forward is built into the laws, but because backward is where the order was. And there was so little of it, and there is so much disorder ahead. We are not falling because we are pushed. We are falling because there is so very much room below. Let that settle, because it is gentler than it sounds. The arrow is not a punishment. It is not a force pushing you around. It is just numbers, just counting. There are more ways to be spread out than gathered up, so things spread out. There are more ways to be broken than whole, so things break. There are more ways to be mixed than sorted, so things mix. That is all. No hand pushing, no will behind it. Only the quiet arithmetic of the possible, and somehow that makes it easier to hold. The universe is not out to get you. It is not running down on purpose. It is simply doing the most likely thing, moment after moment, the way a river simply flows downhill. There is peace in that, the peace of something that means you no harm and never did. There is one more turn to this story, and it is the deepest and the strangest of all, and I have saved it for the quiet part of the night on purpose, because it is the kind of idea that is easier to let wash over you than to grip too tightly. We have been speaking all along as though time flows, as though there is a moving present, a now, that slides steadily forward, carrying us from the past into the future the way a boat is carried down a river. That is how it feels. It feels like the most obvious fact in the world. This moment is happening, and then it is gone, replaced by the next. And the whole of existence seems to be this ceaseless forward motion of the present, always leaving one instant behind and arriving at another. And yet, when physicists look closely at their own equations, they find something unsettling. They do not find the flow. They find the arrow, the direction, the difference between past and future, written in the rising of entropy. But the flowing, the actual moving of the present moment, the sense that time is passing, that is nowhere in the physics. The equations describe a world of events, each at its own place and its own moment, laid out and related to one another, past to future, but nothing in them singles out one special moment as the now, and nothing in them makes that now move. Some of the greatest minds have wrestled with this. Einstein himself, whose work more than anyone's revealed how strange time is, came to believe that the division of the world into past, present, and future is, as he once put it in a letter, a kind of stubborn illusion. In his picture, and in the picture many physicists hold today, all the moments of time simply are, all equally real, the way all the places in space simply are. The past has not vanished. The future is not waiting to be born. They are all there, the whole history of everything, laid out complete, like a landscape seen from above, or like every frame of a film existing at once on the reel. In this view, sometimes called the block universe, there is no flowing present slicing through it. There is just the whole of space-time, still and complete, and the sense of passage, the feeling of one moment giving way to the next, is something that happens inside us, not out there in the world. That is a hard thing to swallow, lying here, feeling so vividly that this moment is passing. And I want to be careful and honest. This is not fully settled. There are serious thinkers who insist that the passage of time is real, that the physics is simply incomplete, that our overwhelming sense of a moving now must be pointing at something true. The debate is alive and unfinished, and it reaches into the deepest questions we know how to ask. I am not going to tell you the answer, because no one honestly can. But here is the thread that ties even this back to everything we have said, and it is a comforting one. Whether or not time truly flows, the arrow is real. Even in the frozen block, even in a space-time laid out complete and unmoving, there is still a direction, still a difference between the end where entropy is low and the end where it is high, still an ordered past and a disordered future, still memories that point one way and hopes that point the other. The block universe does not erase the arrow. The arrow is the grain of the wood. And you, as a being living inside that block, made of matter that records and remembers, will always experience yourself as moving along that grain, from the low entropy end toward the high, from the remembered toward the unknown. The feeling of flow may be the way a creature made of memory experiences its own existence strung out along the arrow of time. The now you feel so surely may be less like a boat moving down a river and more like your own place on a road that was always fully there. And if that is so, then nothing is ever truly lost. Every moment you have lived still is, at its own place along the way, as real as this one. The people you have loved, the mornings you have woken to, the whole of your life, is not vanishing behind you into nothingness. It is simply elsewhere along the road, as solid and as real as the ground you stand on now. There is a kind of peace in that thought, whether or not it turns out to be the final truth, that the past is not destroyed, that it keeps its place, that the flowing away we feel so keenly may be, in the largest view, a kind of gentle illusion, and that underneath it, all our moments rest, safe and permanent, in the great unmoving shape of time. Hold that as loosely as you like. It is one of the ways of seeing, and there are others, and the night is long enough to try them all on and keep whichever brings you rest, and you do not have to choose tonight. Maybe time flows. Maybe it does not. Maybe the now moves. Maybe it only seems to. The wise are still arguing. So you can let it be a mystery. That is allowed. Not everything has to be settled before sleep. Some things are better held loosely. This is one of them. The arrow is real either way. The direction is real. The past behind you, real. The open future ahead, real. Only the flowing is in question. And the flowing, real or not, feels like peace right now. So let it feel like peace. Let this moment seem to pass. Let the next one seem to come. And do not worry which picture is true. Both of them end here, in the quiet, with you at rest. Let us come back down now from those high and airy heights, back to the ordinary world, the world of rooms and windows and warm drinks. Because the arrow of time is not only a thing of black holes and the beginning of the cosmos. It is here, all around you, in the smallest and most familiar things, and there is a quiet pleasure in learning to see it. You saw it this morning, if you made tea or coffee, in the way the steam rose and thinned and vanished into the air, never gathering itself back into the cup. You saw it in the way the milk, once stirred in, swirled and spread and would not unmix. You have seen it every time a drop of color fell into water and bloomed outward into a soft cloud, and never, not once, sharpened back into a single drop. That blooming, that spreading, that gentle, irreversible mixing is the arrow of time written in your kitchen. Entropy rising, the ordered becoming the disordered, the one-way street of the world. You see it whenever something breaks. A glass slips and shatters, and the pieces scatter, and no one has ever, in all of history, watched the pieces gather themselves and leap back into a glass. You see it in the way a fire turns a solid log into ash and smoke and warmth, and never runs backward, never pulls the smoke and ash and warmth back together into wood. You see it in a sandcastle at the edge of the sea, so carefully built, softening and slumping with each wave, returning to the formless flat of the beach. Building the castle took care and effort and a steady input of order. Unbuilding it takes nothing at all. It happens on its own. That asymmetry, that ease of falling apart against the effort of coming together, is the second law, and it is everywhere, once you know to look. You see it in your own body, in the way a scent fills a room, in the way a warm bath cools, in the way a room you have tidied drifts over days, back toward clutter, always needing effort to reorder and never reordering itself. There is a reason tidying feels like work and messing up feels like nothing. Order costs. Disorder is free. The whole texture of ordinary life, the constant gentle effort it takes to keep things clean and mended and warm and alive, is the felt experience of swimming against the current of entropy, of holding back, for a little while and in a small place, the flow that runs through everything. And there is something oddly soothing in recognizing that the small frustrations of keeping a life in order, the dishes and the dust and the fading and the fixing, are not personal failings or bad luck. They are you, living, doing the one thing living things do, which is to hold back the tide of disorder for a while, in your own small corner, and to do it gracefully. Everything alive is doing it. Every cell in your body, right now as you rest, is spending energy to hold itself in order against the pull toward the formless. You do not have to think about it. It happens beneath all your thinking, in every tissue, a quiet, ceaseless labor of order against the dark. And it will go on all through the night while you sleep, keeping you, holding you together, riding the arrow. There is even an arrow in the way time feels as a life goes on, though this one lives in us rather than in the physics. Nearly everyone notices it. When you are very young, a summer lasts forever, a single afternoon can seem to stretch without end, and as the years accumulate, time seems to quicken, the seasons to wheel past faster, the years to slip by with a speed that can take the breath away. No clock has changed. The seconds are the same length they always were. What has changed is us, the way memory lays down its records, the way each new year is a smaller fraction of all the years we have known, the way the familiar stops leaving fresh traces the way the new once did. It is a trick of the remembering mind, not of the turning world, but it is worth a moment's tenderness, because it means the slow, long, endless days of childhood were not an illusion at all. They were real, laid down richly, moment by moment, in a mind meeting the world for the first time. And it means that the way to slow the river, even now, is to meet the world freshly, to notice, to let new things in, to give each day something worth recording. The arrow will not stop, but we can sometimes, by paying attention, feel its passage more fully, and that is a kind of gift the understanding gives back to us. So here is a small thing to try, some ordinary day. Notice one moment fully, just one. Feel the warmth of a cup in your hands. Hear a voice you love. Watch the light change on a wall. Let it in. Let it leave its mark. That is how you slow the river, not by stopping it. You cannot stop it, but by meeting it, by being awake to it as it passes. The days blur when we stop noticing. They stretch again when we start. The arrow will carry you either way. That much is fixed. But how much of the passing you actually feel, how much of it becomes yours, laid down in memory, rich and real, that part is up to you. That is the gift. The river cannot be stopped, but it can be savored. There is a famous little story that physicists have told each other for more than a century, and it is a perfect thing to turn over slowly as the night deepens, because it asks whether the arrow of time could ever be cheated. It was dreamed up by James Clerk Maxwell, one of the great physicists, and it has come to be known, a little unfairly, as Maxwell's demon. Imagine a box of gas divided down the middle by a wall with a tiny door in it. The gas on both sides is the same temperature, which means, remember, that its molecules are jostling about with a whole range of speeds, some fast, some slow, on average the same on each side. Now imagine a tiny being watching the molecules, standing by the door. Whenever a fast molecule comes toward the door from the left, the being opens it and lets it through to the right. Whenever a slow molecule comes from the right, the being lets it through to the left. Little by little, the fast molecules gather on the right, and the slow ones on the left. And fast molecules are just what we call hot, and slow molecules are what we call cold. So without doing any obvious work, simply by opening and closing a little door, the being has made one side hot and the other cold. It has created a difference where there was none. It has made order out of sameness. It has, it seems, made entropy go down. It has run the arrow of time backward. For a long time, this was a real puzzle, because it seemed to show that a clever enough being could defeat the second law, could reverse the arrow, could make the coffee reheat and the cup reassemble, just by being smart and patient. And if the arrow could be cheated that easily, how fundamental could it really be? The resolution took decades to find, and it is beautiful, and it deepens everything we have said. The demon, it turns out, cannot win. Because to sort the molecules, the demon has to know which ones are fast and which are slow. It has to measure them. It has to gather information and hold it and act on it, and then to keep going, forget the old information and make room for the new. And gathering information, and especially erasing it, is not free. It has a cost, paid in entropy, in the demon's own body and the world around it. When you add up the entropy the demon creates in its own thinking and measuring and forgetting, it always exceeds the entropy it removed from the gas. The books balance. The arrow holds. The order the demon made inside the box is more than paid for by the disorder it made in the act of making it. And that is a profound thing to know, lying here in the dark. It means that information itself, knowledge, memory, thought, is not free, not separate from the physical world, but bound up in the same great accounting as heat and motion and everything else. every thought you have ever had, raised the entropy of the universe a little. Every memory you formed tonight came at a cost paid to the second law. The demon cannot cheat the arrow, and neither can we, because we ourselves are made of the same stuff, playing by the same rules, riding the same flow. There is no clever trick, no secret door, no being patient or smart enough that lets the universe as a whole run backward. The arrow is not a lock waiting for the right key. It is the shape of the road itself. People sometimes ask, in the same hopeful spirit, whether we might ever travel back along the arrow, whether the past might be a place we could someday visit. And the honest answer is that the deepest laws we have do not flatly forbid every version of it. And physicists do genuinely study the question, with real equations and real seriousness. But everything we understand about the arrow, everything we have talked about tonight, stands like a mountain range in the way. To go back would be to unspread the gas, to ungather the memories, to run against the landslide of probability that gives time its direction. The universe does not offer a road back to yesterday, because yesterday is the low-entropy direction, the ordered direction, the direction there is so little of and that we are always, always falling away from. We keep our pasts as memories, as records, as the light already sent out into the dark. That is the only way anything keeps its past, and perhaps that is enough. Perhaps it is even a mercy that the past stays fixed and finished and cannot be reached and rewritten, that what happened, happened, and is safe, and is ours, exactly as it was. There is a soft relief in that thought. What is done is done. It cannot be undone, but it also cannot be spoiled. It cannot be reached back into and ruined. It is finished. It is safe. Every good moment you have lived is fixed now, held in place, kept. No thief can take it. No later sorrow can reach back and unmake it. The arrow that carries you forward also seals the past behind you, whole. That is not a loss. That is a kind of keeping. Your best days are not gone. They are just upstream. They happened, and nothing that happens next can ever make them not have happened. So you can set the day down gently. It is yours now, forever, exactly as it was. Let us do something gentle now as the hour grows late. Let us stop asking questions for a while and simply follow the arrow in the mind's eye from the very beginning to the very end as one long, slow, unbroken flow. Let the images come softly. There is nothing to solve here, only a river to drift down. Begin at the beginning. There is a brightness, smooth and even, filling everything, warmer than anything that will ever come after, and perfectly, gently uniform. This is the newborn universe, wound tight in its low-entropy calm, the tightest and quietest order there will ever be. Nothing has happened yet. Everything is about to. The spring is fully wound. Feel how still it is, that first light, before the first star, before the first anything. The arrow of time is poised at its very source, and the whole of history is waiting downstream. And then, slowly, the smoothness begins to stir. Gravity, patient and tireless, finds the faintest thickenings in the even glow and begins to gather them. Here the gas grows a little denser and pulls in a little more and grows denser still. Across millions of years, the smooth becomes gently clumped, the clumped becomes knotted, and in the heart of the first great knots, something ignites. The first stars. Light returns to a universe that had gone dark and cool as it expanded, and now it is lit again, not smoothly this time, but in scattered points, each one a place where the arrow has traded a little of the beginning's order for a burst of warmth and light. Feel the current quicken. The river has found its slope. The stars gather into slow, turning wheels. The first galaxies, vast and luminous, drifting apart from one another as the space between them stretches. Inside them, generation after generation of stars is born, burns, and dies, and each death scatters into space the heavier stuff the star has forged in its core, the carbon and the oxygen and the iron, the very atoms that will one day be rain and stone and blood and bone. The universe is enriching itself, building the materials of worlds and of life, and every bit of that building is the arrow at work, order spent to make complexity, entropy rising all the while, even as things grow more intricate and more interesting. Drift past it slowly. Whole ages of starlight wheeling by. And then, around one ordinary star in one ordinary galaxy, a world cools. Oceans gather on it, and in those oceans, riding the flow of energy from the young star, matter finds a way to hold itself together, to copy itself, to resist the pull toward disorder just a little longer than dead matter can. Life, the most exquisite eddy in the whole river, a place where the current curls back on itself and holds a shape, and passes that shape on and refines it, age after age, into forms of staggering intricacy. Feel how the arrow carries even this. Every living thing that has ever been is a temporary order, riding the flow, paid for by the disorder it sheds into the world around it. The river does not slow for life. Life is something the river does, and on it flows through the whole long story you know and the far longer story you do not, until at last it comes to you, to this moment, to a mind made of the ancient atoms of dead stars, resting in the dark, aware of itself, able to look back up the whole length of the river to its smooth and distant source, and forward, down the long twilight, to the great sameness at its end. You are a place where the arrow of time became aware of itself. That is not a small thing. In all the vast running down of the cosmos, here is a little curl of order that woke up and wondered why the river flows, and followed it, in the quiet of a single night, from the beginning of everything to the end. And now let the river carry on past you, gently, into the far future, the stars winking out one by one, the galaxies dimming, the last light fading, the long, slow drift toward the even, quiet, final calm. Do not be afraid of that far shore. It is unthinkably distant, and you live in the bright young morning of it all, in the age of stars, awake and warm. Let the whole of it, beginning to end, source to sea, rest in your mind at once, one single flowing thing, and let yourself be a part of it, which you are, which you have always been. The arrow of time is not something happening to you. It is something you are made of, and tonight you can simply let it carry you, the way it carries everything, gently, forward, downstream, into rest. There are a few smaller wonderings left to gather, the kind of loose and lovely thoughts that are best held lightly at the edge of sleep, and we can turn them over slowly, one by one, before we begin the long walk down into rest. Here is one. We have spoken of the arrow of time as a single thing, one direction pointing from past to future, the same everywhere. But is it truly the same everywhere? As far as we can tell, yes. Everywhere we look, in every galaxy, at every distance, the same second law holds, the same entropy rises, the same direction of before and after. The arrow does not point one way here and another way in some distant corner of the sky. It is one of the most universal features of reality we know, as constant across the cosmos as the speed of light or the pull of gravity. And there is a strange comfort in that. It means that a creature on a world unimaginably far away, if any such creature exists, would share this one thing with you, whatever else was different. It too would remember its past and not its future. It too would grow older and not younger. It too would feel time flowing the one way that time flows. The arrow is a thing we would have in common with every being there has ever been or will ever be, anywhere. It is perhaps the most universal experience there is. Here is another. People sometimes ask whether time could have run the other way, whether there could be a universe where the arrow points from what we call the future toward what we call the past. And the surprising answer is that such a universe would not feel backward to the beings living in it at all. They would call their low entropy end the past, and their high entropy end the future. And they would remember the ordered direction and move toward the disordered one, exactly as we do. Backward and forward are not written into the universe from outside. They are simply the names we give to the direction of falling order. Any being anywhere, made of memory, and riding the slope of entropy, will always find itself moving from its own remembered past into its own open future, and will always feel that, as forward, there is no view from nowhere that could call our arrow the wrong way round. Forward is simply the way the beings go. Here is a gentler one still. We have talked so much about disorder, about running down, about the slow spending of the universe's order, that it might begin to sound like a sad story, a story of loss. But turn it over once more and see the other face of it. Every beautiful thing that has ever happened because the universe is running down. The warmth of the sun on a summer afternoon is starlight spending itself. The green of a leaf is the arrow at work. A living thing catching the flow of order from the star and building itself in the catching. Your own thoughts tonight, the very awareness that hears these words, is powered by the same downhill flow, food and breath and warmth all riding the arrow, all paid for by the rising disorder they leave behind. Nothing lovely would be possible in a universe that had finished running down. It is the running that makes everything. The spending is the story. And so the arrow of time, which carries all things toward their ending, is the very same arrow that gives all things their beginning and their middle, their growth and their change, and their chance to be at all. It is not a thief. It is the giver of everything we have. And one last small thought, perhaps the most human of all. Because the past is fixed and the future is open. Because we remember what has been and cannot know what is to come, we are creatures who hope and who plan and who wonder. A being that could remember the future as easily as the past would have no need of hope and no room for it. It would simply know. But we do not know. We stand always at that bright moving edge where the settled past meets the unwritten future. And because the ink ahead is still wet, still unmarked, still ours to help write, we get to hope. We get to wonder what tomorrow will bring. We get to imagine and to try and to reach for things not yet real. The very openness of the future, which is nothing but the arrow of time seen from the inside, is the ground of everything we mean by possibility. It is because time flows the way it does that anything is ever still to come, and that, more than any equation, may be the kindest gift the arrow gives us, that there is always, until the very end, a tomorrow not yet arrived, and it is not yet decided, and we are the ones awake at the edge of it, watching it come. Before we gather the whole thread and begin the descent into sleep, let us sit for a little while with the quietest and deepest idea of all, the one underneath even entropy, because it is a good one to rest a tired mind upon. It is the idea of cause and effect, and how strangely it is bound up with the direction of time. Think about what it means to say that one thing causes another. A stone is thrown, and then the window breaks. A match is struck, and then the flame appears. A word is spoken, and then it is heard. In every case, the cause comes first, and the effect comes after. We never see the window gather itself and heal, and then, a moment later, the stone leap back into the hand. We never see the flame die down into an unstruck match. Cause before effect, always, everywhere, without exception. It is so woven into how we think that we can hardly imagine the world any other way. To have an effect precede its cause is the very definition of nonsense, the stuff of dreams and paradoxes. And here is the beautiful thing. That order, cause before effect, is the arrow of time, wearing its most familiar face. The reason causes come before effects is the same reason cups shatter and never mend, the same reason memory reaches backward and not forward, the same reason the smooth young universe gave way to the clumped and structured one. A cause is a small ordered event that sends ripples of consequence outward into the future. And those ripples spread and multiply and mix into the growing disorder ahead, exactly the way a drop of color blooms outward through water and never gathers back. Effects fan out into the future, because the future is where the room is, where the countless ways for things to unfold are waiting. Causes stay behind them, in the direction of the fixed and the finished. The whole vast web of cause and effect, every consequence following every deed, is the arrow of time expressed in the language of doing and happening. And that means something tender for a creature like you, lying here at the edge of the day. It means your actions matter in one direction. What you do sends its ripples forward, into the open, into the not yet, and never backward, into the settled past. You cannot change what has been, but you are always, every moment, a cause, sending consequences downstream into a future that is still soft enough to take their shape. The forward flow of time is precisely what gives your choices somewhere to land. In a universe without the arrow, nothing you did could matter, because there would be no downstream for it to matter in. It is the one-way flow, and only the one-way flow, that makes a life into a story, one thing leading to the next, deeds having consequences, kindness rippling outward, everything you do becoming part of the shape of what comes after. And that is worth resting on tonight. Your choices land somewhere. They ripple forward. They touch the not yet and help give it shape. A kind word said today is a cause. Its effects run downstream, into tomorrow, into people, into a future you will never fully see. That is what the arrow gives you, a direction to matter in. In a frozen world, nothing you did could echo. But this world is not frozen. It flows. And because it flows, you are never only a witness. You are always, in some small way, an author. Every moment hands you a blank stretch of river ahead, and it asks, softly, what you would like to send into it. You get to answer. Again and again, all your life, you get to answer. The arrow of time is the reason anything you do can ever mean anything at all. So when you feel time slipping forward tonight, when you feel this moment passing and the next arriving, do not think of it only as loss. Think of it also as the very thing that lets you be an actor in the world and not just a spectator. Each moment hands you a future that is still unwritten and asks, gently, what ripple you would like to send into it. And then it becomes the past, fixed and safe, a thing that truly happened, and the next moment arrives with the same quiet question. That is what it is to live inside the arrow of time. To be forever at the soft edge of the possible, sending your small causes forward into the dark, watching them become part of the fixed and finished world, and receiving, always, another moment, another edge, another chance, until, at the very last, we lay the question down and let the river carry us and rest. Let us gather the whole thread now, slowly and softly, the way you might pull a blanket up at the end of a long day. There is no new idea coming. This is only a gentle walk back through everything we have wondered about tonight, so that it can settle into place, and you can let it go. We began with a small and enormous puzzle. The laws of physics, the deepest rules we know, do not care which way time runs. Run them forward or backward, and they work just the same. And yet the world we live in cares tremendously. Cups shatter but never mend. We grow older but never younger. We remember the past but never the future. Time, for us, has a direction, an arrow, unmistakable and unbreakable. And the puzzle was, where does that arrow come from, if not from the laws themselves? And we found the answer in a single, quiet idea: entropy. The tendency of things to spread out, to even out, to move from order toward disorder, simply because there are so many more ways to be disordered than to be ordered. We saw it in a shuffled deck, in a cooling cup, in a drop of color blooming through water. Not a law that forbids the reverse, but a landslide of probability so overwhelming that the reverse never comes. The arrow of time is entropy rising. That is the whole of it, and everything else was the unfolding of that one thought. We saw that this only pushed the question back a step, to the beginning. For entropy to rise, the universe must have started low, wound tight in a state of rare order. And we found, to our surprise, that the smooth and even fireball of the early cosmos was exactly that ordered state. Because once you add gravity, smooth is order and clumped is disorder. The whole history of stars and galaxies and worlds has been the universe running down from that smooth beginning. And the arrow you feel tonight traces back, unbroken, to the smoothness of the newborn universe nearly 14 billion years ago. We met Boltzmann, who gave us the statistical heart of it and paid a heavy price for seeing so far ahead of his time. We saw that memory itself is a record, an island of order bought with a rising tide of disorder elsewhere, and that this is why we remember the past and not the future, why the past feels fixed and the future feels open. We saw that the many arrows, the shattering and the remembering, and the cause before the effect, and the light spreading outward, and the whole universe expanding, all point the same way, all children of the same rising entropy. We saw that life itself is not an exception, but an expression of the arrow, a temporary eddy of order riding the great downstream flow, paid for, always, by the disorder it sheds. We followed the arrow to its far end, the long twilight, the last stars, the slow evaporation of the black holes, the great sameness where the differences are all spent, and the arrow itself fades into stillness, unthinkably distant, no claim at all on tonight. And we followed it to its deepest roots, into the strange possibility that time does not truly flow at all, that all our moments rest complete in the great unmoving shape of space-time, and that the flowing we feel so surely is the way a creature made of memory experiences its own place along the arrow. We met the demon who could not cheat the second law, and learned that even knowledge and thought are bound up in the same great accounting. And we saw, at the last, that the one-way flow of time is the very thing that lets a life be a story, that lets causes have effects, that lets our actions matter, that keeps the future open and soft and still ours to help write. And through all of it, one quiet reassurance kept returning, and it is the one to carry down into sleep. The arrow of time is not something happening to you from outside. It is something you are made of. The forward flow that ages the stars is the same forward flow that lets you grow and remember and hope. The running down of the universe is the very thing that makes warmth and light and life and thought possible at all. You are a small, bright curl of order in the great river of entropy, held together by the very current that will one day carry you apart. And there is nothing to fear in that, and nothing to fight. There is only the river and your place on it, in the bright young morning of the cosmos, awake for a little while under the stars. So that is why time moves forward, not because the laws demand it, but because the universe began in order and has been gently, beautifully spending it ever since. And you are one of the countless lovely things that spending has made along the way. That is the answer. And now, you can set it down. There is nothing left to solve tonight, and nothing left to hold. The thread is gathered. The question is answered. And the only thing left to do is rest. So let the thinking loosen now. You do not need to follow the arrow any further tonight. You do not need to hold the stars, or the equations, or the beginning, or the end. You can let all of it drift a little away from you, the way the steam drifts up from a warm cup and thins into the air. And you can simply lie here and be a warm and living thing at rest, held by the same gentle flow that holds everything. Feel how still it has become. The great river of time is still moving, of course, carrying you forward as it carries all things, but you do not have to do anything about it. You do not have to push. You do not have to steer. The current knows the way. It has always known the way, from the first smooth light to this quiet moment, and it will carry you softly on while you sleep, the way it has carried you softly through every night of your life. There is nothing to keep watch over. The universe is running its long, slow errand of order into disorder all on its own, and it does not need your help, and it does not need your worry, and it will still be doing it, gently, when you wake. Let your breathing slow. Notice how it moves on its own, in and out, without your effort. Another quiet flow among all the flows, warm air out and cool air in. Your body doing its patient work of holding itself together, riding the arrow, keeping you, asking nothing of you but that you rest. You do not have to breathe on purpose. It happens by itself, downstream, easy. Just let it, and let the day you have lived settle behind you, into the fixed and finished past, where it is safe now, where nothing can reach in and change it, where it will keep its place along the road forever. Whatever the day held, it is written now, gently, into the record of what has been, and you can set it down. You do not have to carry it into sleep. The past holds itself. That is the one kindness of the arrow you learned tonight, that what has happened stays, safe and complete, and needs no more tending from you. Feel the weight of your body now, sinking a little deeper into wherever you are resting. Feel how heavy and warm your limbs have become, how they seem to soften and spread, like heat easing out into a room, evening toward the quiet. Start at the top of your head and let it be heavy. Let your face grow soft, the small muscles around your eyes letting go, your jaw loosening, the whole face at rest. Let your shoulders drop down and away from your ears, all the holding of the day melting out of them. Let your arms grow heavy and warm, all the way down to the fingertips. Let your chest rise and fall on its own, slow and easy. Let your belly soften with each breath. Let your legs grow heavy and your feet until every part of you is warm and loose and sinking gently down. There is nowhere you need to be. There is nothing you need to solve. The great question that kept the finest minds awake for 100 years, the question of why time flows the way it flows, has been answered as well as anyone can answer it. And you can lay it down now beside you in the dark and close your eyes. The stars are turning slowly overhead, spending their light into the night the way they have for billions of years. And you are here, small and warm and real, one bright curl of order in the flow, exactly where and when you are meant to be, in the young and gentle morning of the cosmos. Let the images fade, the shattered cup, the shuffled deck, the smooth young universe, the last slow evaporation of the final black hole, impossibly far away. Let them all thin and drift and dissolve, like steam, like a drop of color blooming out until it is one with the water and gone. Let the whole long river carry them off, downstream, into the soft and quiet dark. And let yourself go with them, gently, the way everything goes, forward and down and into rest. The arrow of time is carrying you now, the way it carries everything, patiently, kindly, into what comes next. And what comes next, tonight, is sleep. So let it come. Let it rise up around you like a warm tide, slow and even, and let it take you under. You do not have to reach for it. It is already here. It has been coming toward you all along, from the very beginning of the night. And now it has arrived, and all you have to do is let it in. Rest now. The universe will keep its slow forward flow without you for a while. The past is safe behind you. The future is soft and far away. And this moment, this warm and quiet moment, is exactly enough. Breathe out and let the current take you. Good night.